Are there any statements? I call the member for Riverina.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker. And words, however heartfelt, are never enough to replace what Cpl Cameron Baird's family have lost. But I must say the words of the member for Lingiari, a former Veterans Affairs Minister, I know how heartfelt his words were, and he's a hard man, the member for Lingiari, but I know he was choked with emotion at the end of that very eloquent speech, and I've not seen that before, and I pay him very much credit for his very emotional words, because he knows what men and women in uniform do for our nation and for our nation's spirit and the Anzac spirit which lives on. And as I say, I can only endorse the member for Lingiari's very eloquent words. Well done. He said, "God bless you" at the end of the speech to Corporal Baird, and that's so important because, and I know Senator Barnaby Joyce finishes most of his speeches with "God bless you," and it's an antiquated phrase, it's a Christian phrase, but it means so much. And we do say, as a nation and as people, God bless you to Corporal Baird, who gave his life for his mates, for a cause, for a just cause, a righteous cause. And before I came to this place, I never really thought about the fact that I know these people who wear our military uniform and wear it so well. They voluntarily go off. That's because they want to do. They voluntarily go off to war. They serve with great pride and distinction, but they do it because they want to. But for each and every one of the 40 deaths, before I entered Parliament, I didn't realise with how much of a heavy heart it would be when I learned of each and every one of those deaths. Of course, it meant a lot to me, but it means so much more as a parliamentarian, because it's we, the Parliament, who enact the legislation that sends those young men and women off to do battle on behalf of our nation, on behalf of a cause. And with each and every one of the 40 deaths in Afghanistan, it was with such a heavy heart when I learned of those unfortunate deaths. And I know that view is shared across Parliament. This isn't a partisan thing. This isn't a political thing. We are all Australians in this Parliament. We all want our men and women who go off to serve our nation to come home. Godspeed that they come home, and thankfully they are coming home from Afghanistan. Their duty is done. Afghanistan is a far better place now than the one which our troops and our brave men and women first entered. A far better place. It's taken its heavy toll. We've lost 40 of our bravest, our best and our brightest. Young men all, heroes all. And we can only say as a nation thanks, but words are never enough. Words are never enough. When on February 13, the Prime Minister and the Opposition Leader and others made such fine speeches at the announcement of the Victoria Cross for Australia Award for Valour for Cpl Cameron Baird, MG VC. When that announcement of the VC was made, many of the parliamentarians on both sides lined up and passed on their condolences to the family of Corporal Baird. And his mother, I will never forget, she wasn't shedding tears. She was so stoic. She said, and I know it's hard to find the words to actually say to a mother who has lost a son in such tragic circumstances, but in such extraordinary circumstances, who has given his life, paid the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of his nation. And what can you say to a mother who's lost her boy? But thanks, I'm sorry. And she said, no. She said, this is recognition for all his mates. He would have wanted this recognition for his mates. He would want it to be shared by his mates. No individualism. That's the army way. No individualism. It's do it for the team, do it for the unit, the regiment, the army as a whole, but most of all, do it for your mates. And you know, it's hard to grasp that concept of self-sacrifice, but our men and women have been doing it since the first men from these colonies went to the Sudan in 1885, and certainly the Boer War was the first war in which the Victoria Cross, now it's the Victoria Cross for Australia, but back then it was the VC was first awarded. In World War I, 64 recipients of the VC were 64 VCs were awarded, 2 of which went to people from the Riverina who could proudly call the Riverina home. There were others with connections to my region, but 2 in particular from my region who were born and bred in the Riverina, and they were William Jackson from Gunbar near between Hay and Carrathool, and he was the youngest ever VC recipient, still is, 18 years young. Received his Victoria Cross for bravery in France on the Western Front. He was also the first recipient of a VC in action on the Western Front, and he, like Cameron Baird, went out again and again to help his mates, to look for others who were wounded, to repel the enemy, and many sometime later, Sergeant Hugh Camden, who helped William Jackson bring in Private Alfred Robinson. They went looking for the mortally wounded Private Robinson, and Private Jackson said he didn't feel much, just a numbing sensation, because he'd actually lost his right arm. His right arm was just hanging like a limp thread, and Sergeant Camden from Moree told a local reception later for Billy Jackson that Bill had gone out looking without his arm, not looking for a VC, but for a cobber. And you know, that's what I'm sure Corporal Baird also did, not looking for any accolades, awards, certainly not a VC, just went there to do what he knew, what he was trained for, to do his best for his mates. Another VC recipient from Tumut was Jack Ryan, who earned his VC just weeks out from the armistice in 1918 on the Hindenburg Line, another brave hero from the Riverina. And of course in World War II we had Frank Edmondson, who earned his VC in Tobruk. But I talk about the Riverina, and Corporal Baird is familiar with the Riverina because he, like so many of his comrades in Afghanistan, did their initial training at the Army Recruit Training Centre. It was then known as the 1st Recruit Training Battalion at Kapuka, just southwest of Wagga Wagga. And he enlisted on the 4th of January 2000 and did his initial training with many of his mates at Kapuka. And each time that there is a casualty, let alone a loss of life in combat for Australia, it is with a heavy heart that I've always stood in the Parliament and talked of that loss, because so many of those brave young souls did their initial training at Wagga Wagga. Wagga Wagga is a tri-service city. It's unique for an inland regional city to be a tri-service city, and even though we're a long, long way from water, seawater that is, we have a Navy base, we have an historic Royal Australian Air Force base, and every recruit who enlists with the Australian Army, that wonderful organisation, goes through ARTC at Kapuka, where we have a new commandant in Steve Jobson who's doing his best to turn out the fine men and women to serve in our army. And as I say, Corporal Baird's mother, Kay, is very proud of her son, as she should be. His Victoria Cross Award is for most conspicuous act of valour extreme devotion to duty and ultimate self-sacrifice at a village in Uruzgan province in Afghanistan as a commando team leader. And you don't get to become a leader unless you're very, very special. As we've heard, he's served in 7 operations.